Welcome, everyone. As my wonderful legislative director, Joseph Epstein, is letting people in, we're just waiting a few minutes. Good afternoon, and welcome to yet another extremely topical and extremely timely AMET webinar. As all of you are aware by now, a helicopter traveling in heavy fog in the densely forested mountainous terrain over northern Iran crashed on Sunday. Inside this helicopter were Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, and six others, all confirmed dead. As you all know, particularly people who have been following us on our webinars, Iran has been suffering under the suffocating grip of a brutal and autocratic Shia theocracy for the last 45 years. Shortly after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the draconian hijab laws were first introduced, mandating that a woman's hair, body shape, arms, legs, and ankles be hidden underneath a compulsory hijab. This, of course, erupted after the brutal September 2022 arrest of Maha Jina Imani by the quote-unquote morality police for the quote-unquote crime of having a bit of hair revealed from beneath her hijab. Her subsequent death triggered a wave of massive protests throughout 30 of the 31 provinces of Iran, resulting in the arbitrary murder of at least 537 people, perhaps a lot more, including 71 children and adolescents. Tens and tens of thousands of Iranians have been arrested, raped, and tortured during this brutal crackdown. There, of course, have been massive demonstrations that have periodically erupted in 2009, 2019, and of course, 2022. The regime of Ebrahim Raisi was a particularly blood-soaked one. Mr. Raisi was not only the presiding the 1988 death commissions, in which, according to Amnesty International, quote, thousands and thousands of political dissidents were systemically subjected to enforced disappearance in Iranian detention facilities across the country and extrajudicially executed pursuant to an order issued by the supreme leader and implemented across prisons in the country. Many of those killed during this time were subjected to torture and other cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatments or punishment in the process. Not only did Mr. Raisi enact these fatal decrees, but he actually went to execution square to be able to witness these hangings himself. There were so many people that he executed that they had to be lifted six at a time by a crane to be hanged. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us today a person of tremendous intellectual honesty and profound moral courage, the author, journalist, and activist Vahid Bahishti, who has risked his life to be able to free his people from under the suffocating yoke of the Shiite theocracy. Vahid had staged a personal sit-in in front of the United Kingdom's Foreign Office in London for more than a year to pressure politicians to designate the Iranian regime's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. He had held a 72-day hunger strike to advance this objective. Following Hamas's October 7th invasion and rampage across Israel, Vahid Bahishti displayed an Israeli flag in solidarity with, quote, the only democracy in the Middle East, and was chased and attacked by Hamas supporters. The police had to intervene to stop the mob, including apprehending a knife wielding attacker who had threatened to behead Bahishti. Today, we have the honor to be able to listen to a real hero. Vahid, how did you first get involved in the struggle to free the good people of Iran from under the yoke of this theocracy?
Hi, Sarah, and hi to hello to all the listeners and the viewers of this great webinar. I would like first to take this opportunity and thank yourself, the endowment of Middle East for Middle East Truth, and for giving me this opportunity to give my views about where we are at the moment, why Iranian regime, and what we can do. You asked me for your first question, you asked me how I got involved first time. I was 13 years old. This is one of the, I would say, terrifying memory of my dad, because when I was 13 years old, I was leading a little group in our streets, the kids, which we were playing together. I create a group, and for few weeks we were going at 8 o'clock when the weather was getting dark, to write a slogan against the regime in different streets around our house. And then our dads, our family, they found that after a few weeks, and that was in the time of very I would say it was in 1980. So which the regime was very brutal against any kind of activity against them. So I remember my dad, slapped me, and he always was talking about this. And when I grew up, he apologized a few times, and I said, "You couldn't do better than that." Of course, with the position that I put you in, and you knew the whole family will go if somebody find that. So that's how my brain was working against this regime. My feeling, all my being was against this regime since I recognized myself. They executed all my cousins, my family. They were involved always with fighting this regime. So that's how I started. But when I was in Iran, 20 years old, I got arrested 2 times with regime. The second time, it was a big conflict between myself, physical conflict. It was fight between myself and 2 of my friends, and about 15 of these besiegers and IRGC's agents, which I end up again in the prison. And anyway, that's a long story. I can short it, and I can say I am lucky now I am talking to you. So I could escape Iran, and 26 years ago, come to England to continue my activity. Especially past 18 years, my activities is really intense, especially the past year and a half after the Mahsa Amini revolution movement started. Me, my wife, and few of my friends, which we are really active on the field of human rights activities, we focused on IRGC to place, because we knew IRGC is the core of all these human rights violations in Iran, is the core of repression of Iranian, especially women in Iran. So we target them to place them on the terrorist list in UK, because this is a very great step if we are successful in the end. That's why we were having so many meetings with different MPs, with different policymakers, and for a few days we had a feeling. If you remember, January 2023, we had a parliamentary moment in UK Parliament, and we all thought in next few weeks UK government will prescribe IRGC, which didn't happen. And anyway, after that, I experienced all the door was closed. We had no communication from Foreign Office, from different bodies in UK government. That was the moment which I decided to go on hunger strike. Then that hunger strike started on the 23rd of February 2023, which, as you explained, lasted for 72 days. I lost more than 20 kilograms. I was hospitalized on the day 72. I was 2 weeks in hospital and 1 week in safe house, because when I was in hospital, we found out one of the clergies close to IRGC issued fatwa for my head in Iran. So that's why I was in safe house. Then counterterrorism unit, London counterterrorism unit, God bless them. They did everything in their power to convince me to not come back to my camp. But in the end, they couldn't convince me properly. And I came back to the camp and I continue. My first travel was to Ukraine. I went to Ukraine. I meet with politicians in Ukraine, with communities. My second trip was Israel. I am the only Iranian who gave a speech in Knesset to the ministers. And my third trip was in Washington, D.C. And I gave a speech, it was a few weeks ago in Washington, which I gave a speech in Congress. I had more than 30 meetings with different offices in Senate and Congress, focus on the existential threat of Iranian regime, which I am going to talk a little bit about it. Why Iranian regime? Why I sacrifice a lot? I have been camping outside the Foreign Office, living in the street with all these threats that, especially after October the 7th, we are experiencing. Why? Because I see the existential threat, existential danger from this fascist regime toward us, not only toward Israel. The goal is not Israel. The goal is not elimination of Israel, the state of Israel. Israel is the result of the automated goal that they have, which is this. I am not revealing this. They say it themselves. Their automated goal is this: turning our modern world into Islamic state, to caliphate. And they believe this is their divine mission. They brainwashing their people, and they brainwashing our youth in middle of Europe, America, Canada, and different places toward this goal. So when you know this, when you know the nature of this regime, when you know their principle, when you know their goals, when you know their tactics, when you know their strategy, you cannot stay quiet. Then you become someone like me, to risk his life or her life toward this, because they are coming for us. They are coming to destroy us. It was really hard to explain this maybe before October the 7th, especially my experience in past 18 years with European representative and MPs, the UK representative in House of Lords, in House of Commons. But after October the 7th, they called me and they say you were right, because they experienced the level of the brutality, the level of barbarism. They saw what they did. What is Hamas? Hamas is nothing without Iranian regime. Hezbollah is nothing without Iranian regime. Houthis are nothing. Other 18 proxies, armed proxies that they created in the region around Israel, they're all funded by Iranian regime. And each one of them costs at least $100 million a year. So they have money, they have resources, and they are really active toward their goal, regardless of what kind of negotiation we have with them, what kind of agreement, nuclear agreement, peace agreement we have with them. They think, they believe their divine mission is this: to complete the incomplete mission of Prophet Muhammad. They said Muhammad couldn't do his job properly, we have to do it. He couldn't turn the whole world into Islamic state. So we have to do it, because now we have one rich country like Iran with all that wealth, gold, gas, oil, and we have all these proxies. So we have to do it. That's what they believe. If you don't know this, if you don't know the nature of this regime, you cannot fight them. If the supreme leader of Iranian regime, Ali Khomeini, no surprise, he is the first person who translate the books of Muslim Brotherhood into Farsi. But let's find out what Muslim Brotherhood founder, like Hassan Banna, like Sayyid Qut, like Stanhuri, claiming. What is their goal? Without any hesitation, if you study their books, they're saying the same thing as Ali Khamenei is saying today, and the top commander of IRGC claiming. They said, in order to build our wall, we have to destroy the order of the new wall. This is so they have a mission and they come into us. So this is what I am trying to communicate, explain to our leaders in Europe and in America, and make them realize this is the serious threat toward us. Let me bring one example. What happened in 1979 in Iran, which I don't call it revolution, I call it Islamism occupation. What happened, for example, 2 years before 1979, maybe 1977, 1976, if somebody told us in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, they are going to hang people in the streets of Tehran, in the streets of Mashhad or other city because of having different political view or having different belief, no one would believe it. Actually, we were laughing at them, but it happened. If they were saying to us, they are going to, they were in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, they are flogging women, they are stoning women because not wearing hijab or having sex with different, with someone else outside their marriage or whatever, we wouldn't believe that. But it's happened. It's happened. This is what my wife said 12 years ago in European Parliament in one of her speeches. She said, if you don't act soon, it will be too late. It's not going to be far away from us. They are coming. And now we experience that after October the 7th, what we have been trying so hard to communicate with Western leaders. They experience what happened in university campuses, in the streets of London and different cities in Europe, Canada, and America. This is not the result of 1 year, 2 year, 3 years work. This is the result of constant work of Iranian regime on our societies and us being in deep coma. So we have to stand up against this negligence that has engulfed the entire world now. We have to stand up and we have to act soon. That's what I am putting myself in this situation. And what I have said in Knesset 4 months ago to Israeli ministers, I said, for how long are you going to waste your time on proxies, on the tentacles of this octopus, the octopus of terrorism? 8 years ago, I called Iranian regime the octopus of terrorism. I am really glad now everyone using this. So I said, for how long are you going to waste? Of course, we have a responsibility to clear the borders. From one side, we have Hamas, we have Hezbollah, Syria. Look at the situation in Syria. They turned Syria into the military zone in order to distribute their military equipment to the different terrorist group against Israel. Israel must clear all the region from all these terrorists which they are going for it. But the most important is the head of octopus, which is Iranian regime. Okay, now this is maybe, now we understand the threat, the existential threat. Why Iranian regime? I think We don't have that much time. This is the first part. Why Iranian regime? Because of this. Because they come in for us. They come in for us. But how? It seems it looks like it's very complicated task. It's very hard mission. But I am saying, as someone who knows these regimes ins and outs, who knows these regimes very well, their strategy, their nature, their principle, their goal, their tactics, is a great paradox. At the same time, which it looks like very hard and complicated, it's very easy and simple. But we have to understand it. In order to tackle your enemy, this is not me, this is Sun Tzu. 2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu said, you have to avoid very hard and strike the weakness of your enemy. You don't have to strike the strength of your enemy. You have to strike the weakness of your enemy. What is the strength of Iranian regime? When it comes to proxy war, they are really good. They created at least, as far as I know, 18 armed proxies in the region, and many unarmed proxies which they are involved in soft war in here, in London, in different cities of Europe, in Canada, in America, in everywhere. Okay? When it comes to proxy war, they are experts. This is their strength. When it comes to influencing our societies in Europe, in America, they are great because they've been working on this for 35 to 40 years now. They invest a lot on this. This is their strength. But where is their weakness? Inside of Iran. This is the weakness of Iranian regime. The Achilles heel of Iranian regime, where they don't have any legitimacy, and we have a great military of 80 million Iranians who are thirsty for freedom and democracy on the ground. This is the great military that we have. And they are counting the seconds to overthrow this evil regime. But they couldn't, especially since 2009. They had many uprisings. But because of the level of the brutality of this regime, they haven't been successful yet. So we have this great military on the ground, which is 90%, more than 90% of Iranian people on the ground. And the Iranian regime, they don't have any legitimacy. And we have a big division, even inside of regime, inside of IRGC, inside of Basij, inside of their own police, even their morality police. There's a big division at the moment, especially with this event which happened 2 days ago, which we can talk about it. The crash of Ebrahim Raisi and Hossein Amir-Abdollahian and other 7. So this is their weakness, their Achilles heel. This is the place that we have to tackle them, which then we can hit the head of octopus with the lowest price inside of Iran, not in the border of Israel, not in middle of Europe. We have to support Iranian people. This is the secret of overthrowing this brutal regime and freeing the region and the world from the hands of this octopus of terrorism. How we can support Iranian people? By very simple, by targeting, which is the starter. I am really grateful after I am the first one. Actually, I can't say I am the only Iranian who started this. I was under the great attack when I started this conversation, which we should not be afraid to attack IRGC sites inside of Iran. The house of high officials, doesn't matter the house of them, or even if they are in the helicopter, I don't really care about which place they are the high official of the regime and their nuclear sites. We should not be afraid to target them inside of Iran. And when I have said that in the Knesset, in Israeli parliament, I was under the great attack by the agents of the regime who are wearing the mask of Iranian opposition. Oh, Wahid is calling for carpet bombing Iran. Wahid is like his master. Bibi Ben Netanyahu calling for killing innocent Iranians. I said, I didn't call for killing Iranian innocent. I'm Iranian myself. I sacrificed a lot for this. I'm calling for targeting IRGC site, nuclear site, the House of High Officials. So I was under a great attack by them for 2 weeks until the Iranian people in Tehran, from the heart of Tehran, they hung big banner, 5-6 meters was that banner, the first one, which it was written on that in Farsi and English. Wahid Beheshti is our voice. We stand by Israel. That was the first banner which is gone up in middle of Tehran. The second banner, it was about 4 weeks, I think, after this banner, which this was more interesting even. Again, it was in Tehran. They have said on that, Wahid Beheshti brought the message of the children of Cyrus the Great to Israel. And underneath that, they wrote, Bibi, we are ready. Ready for what? What I have said. I have said, you strike IRGC sites, nuclear sites, and the House of High Officials inside of Iran. And then you see the Iranian people will embrace that. They were waiting for that. And after this, few weeks ago, it was a little conflict after Israel targeted the building next to the embassy of the regime in Damascus. And then they launched 400 drones and missiles toward Israel. You saw all the writings and a slogan on different walls in Iran. They were saying, Israel, you hit them, leave the rest for us in the street. You hit them, don't be afraid. So we started this. And this is what the Iranian, this great military of 80 million Iranians are waiting for. This is how we can support them. So what is our job? We have to convince our policymakers, our decision makers to help Israel to give this support to Iranian people. This is a common war. This is a common enemy. We have a common interest. So we have to work together. Of course, the Israeli, we have to really appreciate IDF and Israeli government for what they are doing. Of course, the world maybe do not understand yet what they are doing. They are fighting for us, for all of us, for our liberty, for our freedom, for our democracy. But the world doesn't understand this. Okay, leave them. We have each other. We have to work together. We cannot wait for them. Yesterday, they announced 1 minute silence in United Nations Council. It was unbelievable. For the butcher of Tehran, for the person who is responsible for the execution of 30,000 political prisoners in the summer of 1988. Raisi was the main figure of the death squad. There were 5 people. Raisi was the main figure, which was issuing death sentence after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes court session for people. 30,000. They said 5,000. That's officially. But the actual real number is 30,000 political prisoners that were executed. They had 1 minute silence for this person, for the mass murderer. Where we are going. So I wrote the tweet yesterday. We have no hope. The people of Iran and the people of Israel on these international institutes, especially UN and Red Cross, they lost it. Why in the first place they have been created and they receiving all these funds from these different countries? They lost their mission. So we have no hope on them. We have each other. We have to work together. There is a great prize for this great mission, for this great goal. We have to work together. That's how I can put it. Now I am open to any question, because I know if I go further, it doesn't have an end. I'm open to any question. if the audience have, or yourself or other colleagues they have.
Okay, I have many questions. Thank you so much for your bravery and your amazing intellectual honesty and moral courage. Behind you, as you can see, are pictures of these incredibly beautiful young people who paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives. Um, and you are more aware than anyone else because of your huge network within Iran. Um, what percentage of Iranians do you believe would like to overthrow the Islamic Republic if they can? And we know the Islamic Republic has all the guns and all the weapons. You know, what would it take to really overthrow them?
Comfortably, I said more than 90%, which is 80 million Iranians, 80. Even the people inside of regime, I am telling you, I have I have sources. This is my job is journalist. I've been journalist for 18, 19 years now. I have sources inside of regime, which even we have a great category inside of regime, which they are with people, but they are waiting for the moment. They have to be sure. For example, this uprising is going to end to overthrowing the regime. Otherwise, they're risking their life for good, not just themselves, their families. So comfortably, I said more than 90%, 90, of Iranians are against this regime, not just against this regime. They are ready to overthrow the regime. But because of the level of the brutality of the regime, you saw the report. I think everyone are aware about the report which the BBC World revealed 3 weeks ago about Nika Shakarami. Nika was 16 years old. They raped her. They killed her. They threw her body from the fifth floor. It was just not. Nika is drop of their mass murderer and their crime. So because of this, of course, they haven't been successful. How? That's how I explain. We need to give them military support. What do I mean by military support? Is this target IRGC sites, the nuclear sites, and the House of High Officials. We are going toward that step by step. It's happening. I can see it. It's happening. But we need to work faster because even one day this regime is on power, more life will go, and they're gonna create more damage to our society, to our communities, toward our values.
So at this point, do you feel that there are fissures, there are cracks within the IRGC, within the Basij? Are there
Definitely,
people that
definitely,
that's wonderful?
definitely. There are cracks. There are cracks not in IRGC, not in Basij, in different bodies of the government. They are struggling a very big crisis internally. That's why I have said, especially this crash which we experienced, and the president and the foreign minister of the regime gone. And these two faces are very important. They were very important for Ali Khamenei. He invested a lot for rigging the previous election in order to pull out Raisi from the ballot box, because Raisi is it was built by Ali Khamenei. It was built by a regime for these days, and they thought they're gonna have Raisi in that seat for at least another 5 years, 6 years, so they can focus on other avenues. Now they have a big crisis there. Yes, there is a good chance, but we have to do as much as we can. We have to give the help to Iranians so they can do the job for themselves, for us, and for the whole world.
So now that Raisi is dead, what are the succession plans? How much room is there for quote unquote free and fair elections? Um, will the supreme leader appoint and dictate a council? And as my wonderful colleague Joseph Epstein had asked you before, are the rumors true that the next president might be Khamenei's son?
No, that rumor is absolutely false news, fake news. Khamenei's son is being saved for the seat of supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He's under the intense training and education to be a next supreme leader for years now, and that's why you don't see him anywhere. So this rumor and speculation, which they have said it was this job elimination of Raisi and his foreign minister. It was Khamenei's job. I don't really buy in that. That's Khamenei didn't need to do that, and Raisi wasn't a character to replace Khamenei and was a competition for his son. But Khamenei is facing a big challenge and crisis at the moment. First of all, there are few crises. The first crisis is first challenge to find somebody like Raisi to do the job for him in that seat, because the seat of president in Iran doesn't have any power. All the power, the system. Let me explain a little bit about the Iranian regime. What is the Iranian regime? Is not normal regime. There is a regime and there is a government. So all the decisions and policy will be made by the regime, which is the office of Ali Khomeini and IRGC. So they are working together, and all the policies come out from them. The president, foreign minister are the face, are the puppet of the regime. So they don't have power. But the seat, it's very important place for the different mafia which they sharing government in Iran, because accessing that seat, first of all, making you, I mean, not as a person, each person is connected to one string in Iran, one mafia group. So it makes that mafia group close, first of all, to the supreme leader, and there's a place too for corruption, for stealing Iranian wealth and putting in their pocket to their groups, to their mafia group. So there is a big fight now, as we speak, going on internally between all these mafia groups for the seat of Ebrahim Raisi, to be who's going to be president. Another crisis is the crisis of holding election. The previous election, which was a few weeks ago, the number that they gave out was the participation of 7% of the people of Tehran. This is what they said. I don't believe it even. It was much lower than, I would say 2% maybe, 1% maybe. So they have the only people who participate in the elections are the people who are benefiting from the regime and connected. And I would say few million, maybe 2-3 million people they have. This is all the people that they have around themselves, and they participating. They bring them from this side, they bring them from different sides to participate in different cities, and then they move them with a bus to another city to participate in the elections in the other cities. So they have a big problem and big crisis when it comes to holding election, which is going to be next, I think, 46 days. They only have, but by their own constitution law, they only have 50 days to hold election and elect a new president. So now they have 46 days left. So in these 46 days, they have to hold the election, and Khamenei he has to make sure to pull out a person from the ballot box which is close to him, which most likely I think is going to be the same person who's sitting at the moment on the seat of Raisi, who was the vice president. I cannot say for sure, but I think his name is Mohammad Mokhiber, because he's the closest person to Ali Khamenei, or maybe Saeed Jalili is one of these hardliners. It's going to be one. They're not going to bring anyone from the reformist part of regime. They're going to bring the hardliners. They need the hardliners to occupy this seat. So, but there is a big fight. The stream of Ali Shamkhani, the stream of Mohsen Rezai, the stream of Sadiq Mahsouli, the stream of different stream. There's a stream of Hossein Taeb. So these all are different streams of big mafias in Iran. So the big fight is they are facing a big fight internally, and from the other side, this news was the big boost into Iranian society after the suppression of Mahsa Amini's movement. So now they are energized. You saw the videos how Iranian people are drinking, dancing, playing fireworks, and they holding even nude movements in the social media. So they are really happy. They are really excited. And from the other side, they had Israel. So they are facing many challenges. So yes, the Iranian regime since 3 days ago becomes really weaker. I said about 2 months ago in Congress, and before that in Knesset, I have said Iranian regime, Islamic Republic of Iran, it's in weakest position since 1979. Now I said it's gone even much weaker since 3 days ago, with losing Raisi and only 7-8 people, which they died in the helicopter crash. So yes, but we have to work harder. That doesn't mean they become weaker, we have to relax. No, that gives us a sign that we have to work hard.
Right. And we know from any study of history, when these rigid, brutal, autocratic regimes are threatened, they might even react with more brutality against their population. So these people are incredibly courageous, even the people that are making the videos. I'm sure the government can track them down, but they're willing. They're willing to risk everything. We have a bunch of questions that have come in, and I know Joseph also has some wonderful questions, but I assume the military might be more secular and more divided. Do you think they will support the citizens against the government? Is there any possibility that members of the military would do this?
Sorry, I lost your
Members of
voice.
the military, or would any members of the military break off and support the citizens against the government, do you believe?
Okay, if you're talking about the Atesh, the military of Iran, the main, because we have a military of Iran and we have IRGC. You're talking about a military, yes, they will definitely join Iranian people, but they will join, as I said, when they are confident enough. This is the final uprising, which is gonna end to destroying the regime, to overthrowing the regime. They will join people when they confident enough.
Right. Right. So, but people need arms and weapons to rise up against the regime. That's very
Uh,
difficult without
After
military.
look, that's why I suggested targeting the IRGC side. When we target IRGC side, then people they know how to go there and they get the tools that they need.
And my wonderful legislative director, Joseph Epstein, I'm sure has some questions of his own. Joseph?
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you again, Vahid, for being with us today. So I wanted to ask, the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, he's getting on in years. He's 85, has had various health problems. Previously, it was expected that Raisi would take his place as Supreme Leader. Now the front runner is Mujtaba, his son. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the difference would be between Mujtaba and Raisi, and who is Mujtaba as a person?
Let me tell you something. That was a rumor. They created themselves that rumor. So if of course, you guys are familiar with the art of war, Sun Tzu. So what they are showing to us, to the world, to the international um, communities is not what they are planning. So they constantly working. They have big rooms of thinker and think tanks. They created that rumor. I said that 2 years ago. Raisi wasn't a character at all to occupy the seat of supreme leader. He had no charisma. He had no education. He couldn't even, I would say, I'm going that far. He couldn't even convince his own wife and families. He's not the person to convince the Basijis and IRGCs. These people, they listen to someone who should be educated, who should be connected somehow to Ali Khamenei more than Raisi. That's why you don't see any sign of Mujtaba Khamenei. Mujtaba Khamenei has been isolated. They kept him away from everything because he's under the, as I said before, under the intense training for this seat. So they are working on Mujtaba. So no one, I think, if they last until the moment that Khamenei die, no one, I think, can compete with the seat of Mujtaba Khamenei. That seat has been saved for Mujtaba Khamenei from years ago. And Raisi was Raisi's role was a puppet of Ali Khamenei. He was Raisi was expert only in killing people. That's why they called him the butcher of Tehran. I call him the butcher of Iran. So actually, Raisi was the best person again to be next, to work with Mujtaba Khamenei, not occupying the seat of Mujtaba Khamenei. So that they created that rumor to deviate the intention from Mujtaba, because they want to keep Mujtaba always in a safe and secure place till the moment that arrives.
So who is Mujtaba Khamenei? What do we know about him so far?
So no one knows much about Mujtaba Khamenei. Mujtaba Khamenei name was become really known after the suppression of Green Movement. If you remember, 2009. Before 2009, no one really cared about Mujtaba Khamenei. In 2009, we found out the direct order of killing people and suppressing people in Green Movement was coming directly from Mujtaba to IRGC. Mujtaba has got a great connection with IRGC. The leaders, the top commanders of IRGC, they have listening for Mujtaba. So this is Mujtaba. And behind the scene, Mujtaba is constantly in meeting with the top officials, with the high officials of the regime who are faithful to his dad, to Khamenei, who they recognize as the true believer of the system of Velayat Faqih, the system that they created. So this is Mujtaba. He's very brutal, as I understand, and they've been working on him to replace the seat of Supreme Leader in, I don't know when, Ali Khamenei died.
So you mentioned Velayat Faqih, which is, of course, the ruling sort of ideology behind the regime. Can you explain it to some of our viewers at home who may not know exactly what it is?
Velayat Faqih means Islamism. Velayat Faqih comes from Muslim Brotherhood, means this ideology of, and then look, when I'm Muslim myself, and I always say I am Muslim. I'm a proud Muslim. But there are, at least as far as I understand, there are 72 definitions of Islam which we understand, which we know. I don't know about the other definition that we don't know. The definition that I follow is the Islam that the previous king of Iran, King Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and his dad was following. Rumi. This is the Islam of Rumi. This is the Islam of Hafiz. which is based on love, not tolerance. Tolerance is the wrong word. Acceptance, love, acceptance, and working together. This is peace, love, peace, and acceptance. This Islam which we believe, and this Islam tell us only focus on ourselves. This Islam tell us if any Islam interfere in politics, in ruling countries, or trying to change other people, that's not Islam. So this is the Islam that we believe and we follow. But the Islam that called Velayat al-Faqih, which they extract Velayat al-Faqih from it, which we call it Islamism, it tells you the Islam should control everything, not Islam. This way of thinking, this ideology should be on top of the power and control everything in one society. And actually their mission is to turn the whole world, entire world, to Islamic state. So because they believe whatever we believe as different people, different communities, different societies are wrong. And we all are going to hell. Only their group are going to heaven, and they have a divine mission to force us to go to their heaven. This is the system of thinking of Velayat al-Faqih. And they said we have to use anything, force, lying, deceiving, raping, anything, torturing, killing, for our goal, which is turning the modern world into Islamic state. This is Velayat al-Faqih. So Velayat al-Faqih have created Ruhollah Khomeini, the previous supreme leader of the regime. He extracted from the Muslim Brotherhood book. He says, and when it comes to Islamism, you see, there is no Sunni and there is no Shia. They are working together because this is Islamism. They have one goal, to destroy the modern world, turn it to Islamic state. Their excuse for bringing Islam in and interfering with Islam into government and politics was this, Khomeini. He says, because the Shia believe their 12 saints, Imam, is still alive. It's been alive for 1400 years and is waiting for the moment to appear. This is what they believe, the Shia. They call it Mahdiism. And their saint, his name is, the 12th saint, his name is Mahdi. So the Shia before this, they believe in the absence of Mahdi, we as clergies, as the people who believe in Islam, we are not allowed to interfere in government, in politics, because the Imam, the saint, is not there. So it's haram for us. This is what their belief before Khomeini, before Velayat al-Faqih. Khomeini said in his explanation, for how long are we going to wait for the Mahdi, for the 12th Imam? So maybe for another 100 years, he will appear. So we have to act and prepare the world for his appearance. So they believe Mahdi appear when the corruption conquer the whole world, when the evil conquer the whole world. So they have to do as much as bad they can to prepare the world for the appearance of the 12 saints. That's it. This is the system of Velayat al-Faqih. And that's how, unfortunately, the Western leaders, I don't know how much time we have. I can maybe 1 minute put on this to explain how 1979 happened in Iran. The Western leaders, Helmut Schmidt from Germany, James Callaghan from here, UK, Jimmy Carter from America, and Giscard d'Estaing from France. They had 3 days session in Guadeloupe in France. And after that session, they decided for change regime in Iran. And from the moment, 2 days after this session, you see Ayatollah Khomeini, who was no one, becomes the character of the. We had a reform movement, which on top of that movement was the king of Iran. We had a movement. They turned that movement, reformist movement, to revolutionary movement with the leading of leader, and they put the Ayatollah Khomeini for a leader. 2 days after the session of Guadeloupe in France, you saw the picture, big picture, 2 meter, I'll give you the size, 2 meter by 5 meter, the big pictures of Ayatollah Khomeini in each newspaper shop in France, which in French, written underneath that, the man who shake the West. From that moment, they create the picture from Ayatollah Khomeini for 2 reasons. Because Shah of Iran, the king of Iran, says, I'm not going to sell the oil with the same price anymore. And the second reason was because that was Soviet Union time, and they were in Cold War with Soviet Union. So they thought by bringing this fanatic clergy on top of this movement, turning it to the revolutionary movement and give Iran to him, they can create a wall of Shia, Islamic Shia, in front of communism, of Soviet Union, which that project was a failure. Just I would say maybe 1 year, less than 1 year after the 1979 Islamism occupation, because Soviet Union make part of the regime to attack American embassy in 1979 and took those 66 diplomats hostage for 444 days, and that was done. The regime fall from the hands of Western leaders to the hands of Soviet Union, and where we are now. So right. This was the big mistake of the West, and now they are dealing still with that.
So just last question, because we only have a couple minutes left. If you could give advice right now to President Biden on how he should approach Iran policy, what would you tell him?
I don't even waste my time to give advice to President Biden, because I don't see any ear for listening. President Biden is in deep coma. So I don't waste my energy on this administration at all. If the Iranian regime exists in these few months that we have for the next administration, then I put my time and energy to give advice and talk to. That's why I came to US and talk to different officers, not for this administration. I don't have any hope on this administration, for the next administration. Because this administration, they are in deep coma. They really strongly believe they can convince this brutal regime with talking and negotiation. So that tell me, do not, Wahid, waste your time on this administration, because if you don't know the nature of the regime, if you don't know the tactics, if you don't know the goals, if you don't know the principles, then you are on the wrong path, wasting your time, and you're playing in the ground that the regime laid for you. Look, just let me finish with this. Look at their hostage-taking policy. For 45 years, we are paralyzed in front of their hostage-taking policy. Blatantly, they taking our citizens hostage, and they force us to sit down around one table and provide the fund that they are required for them. We don't forget what happened 3 weeks before October the 7th. They released 6 billion for 5 hostages. So of course the result of that is going to be this. They are going to, if they're receiving 6 billion for 5 hostages, of course they're going to force Hamas to go and take 250 hostages, because it's working for them for 45 years. Wrong policies, wrong advisors. And this is a great work of the regime. Let's take my hat off for them. They know how to influence our policymakers and our decision makers in West. They have different lobbyist group, all with the title of professor, doctors, They come and give wrong information, wrong advice to our policymakers, and the result of that is going to be this wrong legislation, wrong policies in favor of regime, and we are where we are now. But there's a great hope. Let's end with this. There's a great hope. The regime become weaker, the Iranian people become stronger. The Israel knows what they are doing. Of course, they are under great pressure, but they know the threat and are doing everything in their power to counter this threat. So we are not far off destroying and overthrowing this regime, but we need to work harder and more together.
Thank you so much, Vahid. This was an amazing webinar, and I apologize that some of the questions have not gotten asked. Maybe I'll email you the questions and give the responses back to the questioners. I have to say that as we're talking today, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger is on the Hill, former Minister of Congressional Affairs with the Israeli Embassy under Yitzhak Shamir, a great man. And we had Minister Ohad Tal from the Knesset earlier this week. We work very, very hard, not only preparing these webinars, but also writing and publishing. And we are on Capitol Hill. And, you know, an understated secret is we were very responsible for at least getting the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act through the House. Now we're trying to work it through the Senate. And of course, we are working very, very hard at trying to get sanctions on the International Criminal Court. So there's a lot of work that we have ahead of us. All of this takes a great deal of money. So we would really appreciate whatever people could do to support the good work of Amet and also to support the wonderful work of Vahid Vahishti, who is truly a profile in courage. And it's an honor and a privilege to know you, Vahid.
Thank you for all the great work that you guys are doing, and we have to do this. You know, there's no any other choice.
Right. As they say in Hebrew, Ein Brera. There's no choice.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. God bless you.
God bless.